Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into the world of prompt engineering.
Okay.
Think of it as like the secret sauce for getting large language models, these powerful AIs like GPT or Gemini, to actually do what you want them to do.
Exactly. And for this deep dive, we're leaning on Lee Boonstra's guide from February 2025. It's just called Prompt Engineering.
Right.
And our mission, really, is to unpack the core stuff from this guide. So you, the listener, can get what prompt engineering is, why it's so important, and maybe how to start getting better,
Yep.
sometimes much better, results from AI.
Okay, let's get into it then. What is prompt engineering exactly? It sounds, I don't know, a bit technical maybe?
Well, at its core, it's really both an art and a science.
Mm.
It's all about carefully crafting those inputs, the prompts that you feed the language model.
Okay.
The whole goal is just to get the best possible output, the most accurate, the most relevant, the most useful response.
So it's not just like typing a quick question and hoping for the best, like throwing something at the wall and seeing if it sticks.
Definitely not. No.
Yeah.
Think of it more like setting the stage for a conversation. How you phrase that initial prompt, it massively influences what the AI says back. A really well thought out prompt acts like a precise set of instructions. It guides the model where you want it to go.
Yeah.
It's about being deliberate.
That makes sense. Like telling a good story, you need a clear setup for a good payoff. And Boonstra's guide, it says you don't need to be a super technical expert for this, right? It's more about being thoughtful.
That's a really key point, yeah.
Yeah.
You don't need a deep, deep technical dive into how the models work internally.
Okay.
But, and this is important, practice. And just being willing to experiment. That's absolutely essential. It's a skill anyone can build up, really, with a bit of effort.
So why bother putting in this extra effort? I mean, what happens if we just type whatever pops into our head?
Well, the risk is if you use vague prompts or ones that don't quite make sense, you'll probably get vague answers back or inaccurate ones.
Right.
And that really undermines the whole point of using these powerful tools, doesn't it? If you can't trust the output or it doesn't help you.
Yeah, garbage in, garbage out, like the old saying. Total sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the flip side, and this is where it gets powerful, is that good prompts, well-engineered prompts, mean the AI understands your intent much better.
Okay.
That cuts down on confusion, ambiguity, and it just skyrockets the chance of getting really meaningful, precise, useful answers. It changes the AI from a maybe helpful tool to a consistently effective one.
Okay, so we get what it is and why it matters. Now, what are the key parts, the things we need to keep in mind when we're writing these prompts?
Yeah, so Boonstra points out a few critical things. First, it's really important to remember that different AI models, Gemini, GPT, Claude, even things like Llama, they can react differently to the same prompt.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so a prompt that works perfectly on one might need tweaking, maybe even a big change, to work well on another. It's like they speak slightly different dialects.
So definitely not a one-size-fits-all deal. We might need to adapt our approach depending on the specific AI we're talking to.
That's right. Experimentation across models is pretty key if you use more than one.
Any general rules for what works across models versus things that are more model-specific? Or is it too varied?
That's a good question. Generally, I'd say very clear, direct instructions tend to work reasonably well everywhere.
Yeah.
But things that rely on, say, very subtle language nuances or specific creative styles, you might see more variation there.
Okay.
But yeah, testing is the only way to know for sure how your specific model reacts best. Second, the configuration settings you use for the model, they play a big role too.
Configuration settings. And like what?
Things like the output length you want, that's pretty straightforward, just how much text it should generate.
Okay. And then there's temperature. That sounds interesting. Like dialing up the AI's creativity.
Sort of, yeah. Temperature controls the randomness, you could say, the surprise factor in the output. A low temperature makes the model stick closer to the most probable, predictable words based on its training. Good for facts, precision. It wants the safest answer.
Right. Low temp for straight facts. What happens if you crank it up?
Higher temperature means more randomness. So more creativity, more unexpected ideas can be great for brainstorming, writing fiction, that kind of thing.
But maybe less reliable.
Exactly. There's a higher risk of it going off track, becoming less coherent, maybe even saying things that aren't quite right factually. It's a trade-off. Interestingly, though, sometimes even for factual tasks, nudging the temperature up just a tiny bit can help it avoid getting stuck in a rut and maybe find a more nuanced yet still correct way to phrase things.
Oh, that is interesting. Finding that sweet spot.
Precisely. And then Boonstra also mentions top K and top P. They sound a bit more technical, maybe.
Yeah, what are those about?
They're basically other ways to control which words the AI considers next. Imagine the AI choosing the next word. It has tons of options. Top K just says, only look at the top K most likely words. So maybe the top 10 or top 50.
Limits the choices.
Right. And top P is slightly different. It looks at probabilities and says, pick from the smallest group of most likely words that add up to a certain probability, P. Both are just ways to fine-tune that balance between letting the AI explore creativity and keeping it focused, coherence. Like, if you want creative writing, but it keeps repeating itself even with high temperature, adjusting top K or top P might give it more words to play with, but still controlled.
Okay, that helps understand how their settings work. So knowing about the model, the settings,
Right.
what are some actual techniques for writing prompts?
Right, the how-to. Boonstra covers several. The simplest is probably zero-shot prompting.
Zero shot.
Yeah, you just give the AI the task description, clearly state what you want, but you don't give it any examples of what the output should look like.
So just tell it what to do and see what happens. Does that work often?
It works surprisingly well for a lot of common tasks.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't quite get you there,
Then what?
then you can try one-shot or few-shot prompting. As the names kind of suggest, you include one example, one shot, or a few examples, few shot, right there in the prompt.
Oh, like showing it what you mean.
Exactly. You demonstrate the format, the style, whatever it is you're looking for. It gives the model much clearer context, showing, not just telling.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. If I wanted, say, a poem in a specific, maybe obscure style, giving an example seems way better than just describing the style.
Absolutely. And beyond those, there are other methods, like system prompting, setting a kind of overall instruction or persona at the very start of your chat.
Like a ground rule for the whole conversation.
Sort of, yeah. Or role prompting, where you explicitly tell the AI act as a financial advisor or travel agent.
Give it a job title.
Pretty much. And contextual prompting is just about feeding it relevant background info for the specific task. All these are about adding more context, defining the AI's role more clearly.
Okay, great. So we have the what, the why, some techniques. What about best practices, like the core advice from Boonstra we can use right away?
Number one, absolutely. Clarity and specificity. Be super clear, super precise. Avoid ambiguity.
Don't be vague.
Don't be vague. Vague prompts lead to vague answers, almost always. The more detail on format, tone, content you give, the better.
Got it. Be specific, less room for error.
Exactly. Second, like we just talked about with few-shot, use examples. Showing the AI what good looks like is incredibly powerful. Give me something like this.
Show, don't just tell. Got it.
Third, Boonstra really stresses experimentation. Don't be afraid to just try stuff. Different lengths, different phrasing, different structures.
Okay.
What works great for summarizing text might be terrible for writing code, So test, tweak, iterate.
So trial and error is part of the process, like learning any skill, really.
Absolutely. And to make that less random, the fourth point is documentation. Keep track of your prompts.
Like write them down.
Yeah, note down the versions you try and what results you get. It helps you see patterns, learn what works for what task, and just makes the whole thing more systematic, like a lab notebook for your AI chats.
That's smart. Takes the guesswork out, makes it more of a science.
Indeed. And finally, Boonstra does mention a common frustration, the repetition loop bug.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
Sometimes the AI just gets stuck, repeating the same phrase or sentence over and over. It's weird. Annoying, I bet.
Can be. But if you hit that, he suggests trying to adjust the temperature or those sampling settings, top K and top P. That can often nudge it out of the loop.
Good troubleshooting tip. Okay, so wrapping this up then, what's the big picture takeaway from this deep dive on prompt engineering?
I think the main thing is that it's an ongoing process. It's iterative learning. It's about really understanding how these models think, experimenting constantly, and refining your approach based on what you see.
Okay.
The more you consciously practice it, the better you'll get at guiding the AI to give you what you actually need. It becomes more intuitive. And for listeners wanting to go even deeper, Lee Boonstra's full guide, Prompt Engineering, that's the place to go.
Absolutely. It's packed with detailed explanations, loads of practical examples for different situations, and more advanced stuff too. Really invaluable if you're serious about using these AI tools effectively.
Great. So as you start playing around with this art and science of prompt engineering, here's a final thought to chew on. How can these principles, we've talked about clarity, specificity, giving context, using examples, how can applying those more consciously in our human interactions maybe lead to better understanding, fewer mix-ups, and just better outcomes in everyday life. Something to think about.